You wake up early, alarm goes off, you hit snooze once, maybe twice, then you get up, get ready, and go to work. You do what you're supposed to do. You show up, you work hard, you stay consistent. At the end of the month, you get paid. And for a moment, it feels good. But then reality kicks in. Bills, rent, food, subscriptions you barely remember signing up for. You tell yourself, this month I'll save more. Maybe you even do a little. But somehow, by the time the next paycheck comes in, it feels like nothing really changed. Look, you're not irresponsible. You're not lazy. You're not bad with money. But here's the thing. If you've been doing everything right, working, saving, trying to be smarter with money, and you still feel stuck, then maybe the problem isn't your income, and it's not just your expenses either, because there are people making less than you, building real wealth, and people making more than you, still living paycheck to paycheck. So what's actually going on here? That's what we need to talk about. My name is Demas, and I spend way too much time thinking about money. If you're someone who feels stuck financially, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Look, most people think their financial problem is simple. They think, I just need to earn more, or I need to find the right investment. And yeah, that sounds logical. But here's what most people don't realize. You can increase your income and still feel broke. You can start investing and still make bad financial decisions. Because money isn't just numbers, it's behavior. It's habits. It's how you think when no one's watching. Now you might be thinking, so what? If I make more, things will get better. And sure, income helps. But if your mindset doesn't change, your problems just scale with your paycheck. Bigger income, bigger lifestyle, more money, more pressure. Same patterns, just with higher stakes. Here's the thing. This video is not about quick tips or surface-level advice. We're going deeper than that. Because once you understand how your mind actually works with money, you stop reacting and start making intentional decisions. And that's where everything begins to change. Let's talk about the advice you hear all the time. Save more money. Spend less. Start investing early. Pay off your debt. Look, none of this is wrong. In fact, it's technically correct. But here's the thing. If it were that simple, most people wouldn't feel stuck. Because almost everyone already knows this. Now you might be thinking, okay, but I am trying to save. And I believe you. But here's what most people don't realize. Knowing what to do is not the same as actually doing it consistently. And even when you do it, your behavior can quietly cancel out your progress. This is where it gets uncomfortable. According to data from the Federal Reserve, nearly 40% of Americans wouldn't be able to cover a $400 emergency without borrowing money or selling something. Think about that for a second. That's not just people with low income. That includes people with stable jobs, even decent salaries. So what's really going on? Because this isn't just a money problem, it's a behavior problem. You can have access to the right information and still make the wrong decisions, not because you're careless, but because your financial choices are being driven by patterns you don't even notice. And until you understand that, you'll keep repeating the same cycle. Let's put emotions aside for a second and just look at the numbers. Because numbers don't lie. Imagine two people. Person A makes $3,000 a month, not a huge income, nothing special. But every month, they consistently save and invest $300. No excuses. Person B makes $6,000 a month, twice as much, but they spend everything. Every raise turns into a lifestyle upgrade. Now you might be thinking, obviously person B is in a better position. But here's what most people don't realize. After 10 years, assuming an average return of 8%, person A ends up with around $55,000 to $60,000 invested. Person B? Zero. Same economy, same time. Completely different outcome. Now let's go deeper. Let's say you have $5,000 in credit card debt with a 20% interest rate, and you also have $5,000 in cash. So what do? Invest it or pay off the debt? This is where it gets really interesting. If you invest and earn around 8% annually, but your debt is costing you 20%, you're not gaining anything. You're losing 12% every single year, quietly and consistently. Look, that's not investing. That's just losing money in a way that feels productive. And that's the danger, because when your mindset is off, even smart decisions can work against you. All right, this is where things start to get a little uncomfortable, because what's holding you back financially isn't just your income. It's how your brain is wired. Let's start with something called loss aversion. Here's the idea. Losing money feels about twice as painful as gaining the same amount feels good. So when you think about using $5,000 to pay off debt, it doesn't feel like progress. It feels like you're losing money, even though mathematically, you're actually improving your situation. Now you might be thinking, yeah, but I'd rather keep the cash just in case. And that's exactly how your brain traps you, because holding on to money feels safe, even when it's quietly costing you more. Now let's talk about something even more powerful: instant gratification. Your brain loves rewards right now. Not next year, not in 5 years, right now. So instead of investing $200, you spend it, not because you're irresponsible, but because your brain is designed to prioritize short-term comfort over long-term gain. Look, one small decision doesn't ruin your finances, but repeated over time, it creates a pattern, and that pattern becomes your reality. That's how people stay stuck, not from one big mistake, but from hundreds of small automatic decisions they never question. Now let's go deeper, because this is where it gets really interesting. There are two more patterns that quietly keep people stuck. The first one is lifestyle inflation. Here's how it works. You get a raise, maybe a bonus, maybe a better job, and instead of increasing your savings or investments, you upgrade your life. Better phone, better food, maybe a nicer place, or a car that feels deserved. Now look, there's nothing wrong with enjoying your money, but here's the thing. If your lifestyle grows at the same speed as your income, your wealth stays exactly where it is. Zero progress. Now you might be thinking, well, I worked hard for this. I should enjoy it. And you should. But if every increase in income turns into an increase in spending, you're not building wealth. You're just maintaining a more expensive version of the same life. Now let's talk about risk. Most people think investing is risky, so they avoid it. They keep their money in cash, where it feels safe. But here's what most people don't realize. Inflation is quietly reducing the value of that money every single year. At the same time, debt is compounding against them. And opportunities? They're passing by. Look, avoiding risk doesn't make you safe. Sometimes, it's the riskiest decision you can make. So if that's how most people think, what do people who actually build wealth do differently? Because here's the thing. They're not just playing the same game better. They're playing a completely different game. First, they prioritize control over consumption. The average mindset is simple. I make money so I can spend it. But the wealth mindset flips that. I make money so I can buy freedom. Freedom of time, freedom of choice, freedom to say no. Now this is where it gets really interesting. Wealthy people don't rely on motivation. They build systems. Because motivation fades. You feel inspired for a few days, maybe a week. Then life happens. Expenses come up. You get tired. You stop. So instead of depending on willpower, they automate their decisions. Money moves before they even have the chance to spend it. Another shift? They think in decades, not months. Most people ask, what can I afford right now? Wealthy people ask, what will this decision cost me in 10 years? That question changes everything. And finally, they don't tie their identity to money. They don't need to look rich. They focus on being financially stable, then financially free. Because at the end of the day, money is just a tool. And once you see it that way, you stop using it to impress people and start using it to build your life. All right, let's bring this down to something practical. Because understanding this is one thing, but applying it is what actually changes your life. First, awareness. Before you fix anything, you need to see what's really happening. Track your money for the next 30 days. Not to judge yourself, not to feel guilty, but to understand your patterns. Because here's the thing. You can't change behavior you're not aware of. Second, create a simple priority system. Not everything should happen at the same time. Start with a basic safety net, even a small emergency fund. Then focus on high-interest debt, anything above 8 to 10%. After that, build your investments. Now you might be thinking, shouldn't I invest first? Look, order matters more than intensity. Third, automate your decisions. Set up automatic transfers, savings, investments, even debt payments. Because if you rely on discipline alone, you will eventually fail. Everyone does. And finally, delay your decisions. Not forever, just long enough. Before any non-essential purchase, give yourself 48 hours. That simple pause creates space between impulse and action. And that space, that's where better decisions are made. Small changes, but repeated consistently, They completely shift your financial trajectory. Now you might be thinking, this all sounds good, but I don't make enough. Look, more income helps, no question. But here's the thing. If your habits don't change, more money won't fix the problem. It just makes your mistakes more expensive. Maybe you're thinking, I'll start when things are more stable. But stability doesn't come first. It comes from action. Small, consistent actions over time. Or maybe this one. What if I make the wrong decision? You will. Everyone does. There is no perfect path when it comes to money. But not deciding? That's the one mistake that guarantees you stay exactly where you are. Here's what most people don't realize. You don't need perfect timing. You don't need perfect knowledge. You just need to start making slightly better decisions than you did yesterday. Because that's how change actually happens. Slow, quiet, almost invisible at first. But over time, it compounds. And eventually it becomes something real. So if you've been feeling stuck, it's not because you're not trying hard enough. It's not because you're not smart enough. It's because your financial life is being shaped by patterns you haven't fully seen yet. And once you see them, you can change them. That's where control begins. And that's where real wealth starts. Not in your paycheck, but in your mindset.